Have one of those moments where you knew deep down you should have said no, but you didn't? Not because you didn't see the risk, but because something inside you wanted to feel something again? Yeah, that was me. And that moment? It's the one I keep rewinding in my head at 2:14 a.m. when the house is dead quiet, when even the walls feel like they remember. It was just supposed to be a casual evening. My stepson brought his friends over, 3 boys, loud and messy like teenagers always are. Nothing strange about it. Nothing alarming. At least, that's what I told myself. But sometimes, danger doesn't knock. It smiles. It says thank you politely after you serve the snacks. It compliments your hair when no one else has in months. And it lingers in the corners of the room, in the glances that last a second too long. That night didn't start like a mistake. It started with popcorn, video games, and laughter spilling down the hallway. But underneath that laughter, there was something else. Something I felt in my chest before I could name it. You see, I was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the kind that settles into your bones when you haven't been touched, seen, wanted in a long time. My husband? He's a good man. But he stopped looking at me like I mattered. Stopped noticing when I changed my hair or when I cooked his favorite meal. Stopped reaching for me under the covers. And I told myself that's just marriage. That's just life. But then, someone else looked. Someone younger. Someone who shouldn't have. And I didn't stop it. Not the glance. Not the warmth it stirred in me. Not the way my body remembered it used to feel things. I didn't cross the line, not really. But my heart, my mind, they were already standing on the edge. And now? Now, every time I walk past that hallway where they sat, I don't just see the couch. I don't just hear the echo of their laughter. I hear my own silence. I hear what I didn't say. What I should have stopped. And I wonder if saying no would have changed the ending or if the damage had already begun the moment I needed to be seen. So before I tell you the rest, before you judge or understand or maybe even relate, I want to ask you something. Have you ever made a choice you can't quite name as wrong, but still can't forget? Because the story? It's not just about what happened. It's about what almost happened and how those are sometimes the hardest things to live with. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold if you believe some of the most powerful stories live in the quiet places no one dares to talk about. Now, let me tell you how it all happened. It's strange how a house can feel so full, yet leave you feeling hollow. 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, and still no space that feels like mine. The walls carry his voice, but never his touch. The kitchen smells like dinner, but never like warmth. And our bed. Our bed has become a place to sleep, not a place to reach for one another. My name is never said softly anymore. Just reminders. Errands. Bills. He's not cruel, he's consistent. Predictable. Gone even when he's sitting 2 feet away. The kind of man who forgets your favorite color, but never forgets to pay the light bill. I tell myself I should be grateful. Roof over my head. Food in the fridge. Security. But there's no safety in being unseen. Then there's a son. 17. Quiet. Not like most boys his age. He doesn't slam doors or mumble curses. He's polite. Careful. The kind of kid who notices when you change the curtains or when your eyes are tired. I caught him watching me once. Not in a disrespectful way. Just like he was trying to figure something out. Maybe that's what scared me the most. That I saw a part of myself in his gaze. The part that remembers. The part that still aches. I didn't raise him. I married into him. He came with the package. Summer visits and quiet dinners. He's my stepson, not my child. And yet, there's this unspoken space between us. One that shouldn't feel so charged. The neighborhood is quiet, especially in summer. You can hear sprinklers go off 2 houses down. Lawnmowers hum like distant bees. Inside, the air is still, heavy, like something waiting to happen. I spend most days moving through rooms like a shadow. Folding clothes. Wiping counters. Trying not to notice how loud the silence has become. trying not to wonder when I stopped being looked at like a woman and became just another item on the list. And on that Thursday, that sticky, humming, ordinary Thursday, when my stepson asked if his friends could come over, I should have said no. But I didn't, because maybe I was just hoping someone would look at me and see more than folded laundry and dinner on a plate. Maybe I was hoping that just once I wouldn't feel like a guest in my own home. I said yes, and I smiled when I said it. And that smile, it felt like the first real thing I'd done in weeks. He asked casually, like it was nothing. Hey, can my friends come over tonight? Just for movies. No big deal. But something in the way he stood in the doorway, shoulders square, eyes soft, made it feel like more than just a question. Like he knew I'd say yes before I even opened my mouth. And I did. I said yes. Not because I had nothing better to do, but because, for once, someone wanted something from me. Not dinner. Not laundry. Just permission. Just a simple yes. I cleaned the living room like it mattered. Fluffed pillows, wiped down the coffee table twice. Lit the good candle, one I usually save for guests who never come. I made popcorn, poured chips into bowls, arranged them like I was hosting something more than teenage boys. And when I went upstairs to change, I caught myself in the mirror and paused. I didn't reach for anything revealing. But I didn't grab the old sweatshirt either. Something in between. Something that said, I still see myself. Something that said, I still remember how it feels to be seen. When they arrived, the house filled up fast, with voices, sneakers squeaking on tile, that constant hum of boy energy. I smiled at them. Ethan, tall, polite, the one with warm eyes, was the first to thank me for the snacks. Then Caleb, quiet but kind. And then Zion. Zion didn't say much. Didn't need to. He held eye contact just a second longer than the rest. Not in a way that felt wrong. Not yet. Just noticed. They sank into the couch like they'd done it 100 times. But it was the first time I felt like the room was full. Full of sound. Full of attention. Full of things I hadn't felt in months. I brought the snacks over, brushing too close to someone's knee. I didn't mean to. Or maybe I did. Someone cracked a joke about the cheesy dialogue in the movie. I laughed. Too loud. It wasn't even funny. But it felt good. That laugh. It shook the dust off something buried. And when I glanced up, Zion was watching me. Not in the way a boy looks at a stepmother. Not in the way a boy looks at anything safe. Just watching, like he saw something underneath. And in that moment, I wasn't his stepmother. I wasn't anybody's wife. I was just a woman. A woman who hadn't laughed like that in a long, long time. I told myself it was nothing. That teenage boys are awkward and look at everything. That I was reading too much into it. But deep down I knew something had shifted. Not in the room. In me. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that settles in after laughter has left the room, but hasn't fully disappeared from your chest. The boys had finally dozed off, 3 tangled bodies across the living room floor, limbs tossed over cushions, the television humming low with some late-night rerun no one was really watching. I stood in the hallway, staring at them for longer than I should have. Not in a motherly way. Not in the way I wanted it to be. Just still. I went into the kitchen. The lights were off except for the dim glow under the microwave. I didn't turn anything on. I just sat there alone in that half-darkness. Hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of tea I never even sipped. And I replayed it. The way one of them had brushed past me earlier when I reached to hand someone the popcorn. Just an innocent moment. Or it should have been. But his arm grazed mine, bare skin against bare skin. And my breath caught before I could stop it. It lingered. The contact. The warmth. The fact that I noticed it. The fact that my body noticed it before my mind had time to lie. I sat in that kitchen with that shame crawling across my skin. Not because anything happened, but because something had woken up inside me and I couldn't put it back to sleep. I told myself it was nothing. That I was just tired. that I was just lonely. But there's a certain kind of silence after midnight, where every thought sounds louder than it should, where guilt has a voice, and memory has a heartbeat. I remembered the way Zion had looked at me, not like a boy, not like a stranger, like someone who saw the cracks and didn't flinch, like someone who wasn't supposed to see me at all, and did. I pressed my palms against the edge of the table, hard, trying to ground myself, trying to remind myself I was the adult, the stepmother, the wife. But in that moment, I didn't feel like any of those things. I felt like a woman who had been sleepwalking through her life and suddenly caught her reflection in someone else's eyes. I hated myself for feeling it. I hated how alive it made me feel, how warm my skin still was where that small brush of contact had happened. It wasn't right, but it wasn't nothing either. That kind of feeling doesn't ask permission. It doesn't announce itself. It just arrives and sits with you in the dark, like an old ache you forgot you used to carry. I closed my eyes, and in the quiet, I whispered to no one, "What's wrong with me?" And the silence didn't answer, because it already knew. They came over again the next weekend. Then the one after that. Movie nights turned into game nights. Game nights turned into just hanging out afternoons. It became a routine, one I didn't question, one I found myself looking forward to more than I should have. They laughed louder now, joked more freely, used my first name instead of ma'am. I laughed with them, teased back. Sometimes I caught myself checking the clock, wondering when they'd arrive, wondering what shirt I might wear, what earrings to pair with it. I started wearing lipstick again. Nothing too bold, just enough color to make my lips look less forgotten. I told myself it was for me, but I watched the way Zion's eyes flicked to my mouth when I smiled, and I didn't look away. One afternoon, one of them left his phone on the table. It buzzed once, twice, and I glanced at it. The lock screen was a photo. Not just any photo. It was of me. Candid. Taken mid-laugh, in the kitchen. Head thrown back, eyes lit up in a way I didn't recognize anymore. I hadn't laughed like that in front of my husband in years. I didn't say anything, just stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I walked away, pretending I hadn't seen it. But my hands were shaking. My stepson saw it too. He didn't say a word. But the next time he looked at me, something behind his eyes had changed. A question he wasn't ready to ask. Or maybe one he already knew the answer to. The air in the house began to shift. Little things. Lingered glances. Longer silences when I walked into a room. Voices dropping, then rising again too casually when I appeared. Once, I walked past a door that hadn't been fully shut, and I heard it. A whisper. A low chuckle. Then a sudden hush when they saw me. Someone said, "Shh, don't," and the others laughed nervously. I asked no questions, because I didn't want the answers. I felt it. Felt the way Zion's eyes followed me when I leaned forward to pick something off the floor. Felt the air thicken when I stood too close. Felt the way they moved around me, not boys anymore, not quite men, but something dangerous in between. And I still didn't stop it. Didn't shift the energy. Didn't pull back. Because deep down, a part of me didn't want to. A part of me craved being looked at like that. Not with disrespect, but with curiosity. With want. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was overthinking. But then why did I linger in the hallway a few seconds longer each time I passed them? Why did I start remembering the sound of their laughter at night? Why did I start dreaming of rooms I hadn't stepped into, with people I shouldn't be thinking about? The lines blurred slowly. Not in actions, but in emotions, in thoughts. In the way I started losing track of who I was trying to be, and who I already was. My husband was out of town again. A conference, he said. 3 nights, maybe 4. He kissed my cheek without really looking at me. His suitcase rolled behind him as the front door clicked shut. The silence he left behind wasn't new. But that night, it felt different. It felt like something was about to happen. Or maybe I just knew that I was too tired to keep pretending I couldn't feel the shift in the air. Around 7, the boys showed up. Unplanned, they said. Just passing by, thought we'd say hey. I could have said no. Should've. But instead, I opened the door and smiled like I'd been expecting them. It was just the 3 of them. Ethan, Caleb, and Zion. They sprawled on the couch like they owned it, casual and loose. I handed them sodas and tried not to notice how Zion's fingers brushed mine as he took his can. Tried not to notice how close he sat this time. Not on the other end. Right there. Beside me. Too close. The others decided to step outside for a smoke. I should have followed them. I should have found an excuse. But I didn't. I stayed. And so did he. It was quiet for a while. We didn't say much. The television played something neither of us were watching. I was too aware of the heat between us, of the way his shoulder barely grazed mine, of how I hadn't moved away. Then he leaned in. Close. Closer than he ever had before. Close enough that I could feel his breath against my neck. And he said it. Soft. Low. Something I pretended not to hear. Not because I didn't understand, but because I did. I didn't respond. Didn't speak. Didn't move. I just sat there. Frozen. And then the door opened. My stepson stepped into the room. He didn't say a word. Didn't blink. Just stopped and stared. At me. At Zion. At the space between us that suddenly felt like a crime scene. It only lasted a few seconds. But it felt like hours. A silent film playing across his face. Shock, confusion, and something else I didn't want to name. Zion straightened up. Cleared his throat. Stood too quickly. The others returned, laughing, unaware. But the damage was done. My stepson didn't look at me again that night. Not once. And I didn't look at him either. That night. I lay in bed with the lights off, staring at the ceiling. The sheets felt heavy. My skin itched with the memory of heat that wasn't mine to feel. I couldn't sleep. Not because of what did happen, but because of what almost did. Because of the way I didn't say no. Didn't pull away. Didn't protect him, my stepson, from the woman I was becoming. And in that silence, I knew something had cracked. Something that wouldn't ever fully heal. The change was quiet, so quiet I could have pretended it wasn't there. But I felt it in the air the next morning, thick and still like something had died in the night. He wouldn't look at me. My stepson. Not once. Not at breakfast. Not when I asked if he slept well. Not when I tried to hand him his plate and he took it without a word. The others had already left. They didn't even say goodbye. He left too, slipped out before lunch with a mumbled excuse, and his backpack slung too tight over one shoulder. He didn't come back that evening. Not until late. Not until the house had gone quiet again. And even then, he walked past me like I wasn't there. I told myself he was just moody. That he'd outgrow it. But I knew better. Because guilt knows the truth even when no one says it out loud. The silence between us turned to frost. He didn't eat with me. Didn't answer unless his father asked the question. Didn't sit in the living room when I was there. And I started overcompensating. Baking too much. Cooking elaborate dinners no one asked for. Folding his clothes with care he wouldn't notice. Smiling too much at things that weren't funny. My husband barely noticed at first. But even he started to glance longer at the space between me and his son. Once, he asked, "Everything okay between you two?" I said yes too fast. He shrugged, went back to his emails. But I could feel it, the weight of what hadn't happened pressing against everything that still could. And then the boys stopped coming. No more visits. No more movie nights. No more laughter in the living room. Just the sound of my footsteps on tile, echoing back at me. I started avoiding mirrors. But they found me anyway. Reflections in windows, in silverware, in screen dark glass. Always catching me when I wasn't braced for it. I didn't recognize my face. Not the eyes that once sparkled when someone said my name. Not the mouth that now only smiled out of habit, never out of joy. I used to look at myself and see a woman holding a family together. Now, I just saw someone holding her breath. He didn't touch me. Not once. Not a hand. Not a kiss. Not even a whisper across skin. But the guilt? It clung to me. It curled beneath my ribs and made a home. Every time I heard the front door click, I flinched. Not out of excitement, but fear. Fear that this was the moment it would all come undone. That my husband would see it in my face. That my stepson would finally speak what we both knew. I couldn't look at him. Not because I was afraid of what he'd say, but because I already knew what he wouldn't. And silence has a way of speaking louder than anything else. Some nights, I lie in bed and ask myself the same questions over and over. Was it just loneliness? Was that all it was? Or did something inside me choose to let the line blur? Did I want to feel seen so badly that I ignored what it cost? I didn't touch him. I didn't say a word. But silence can be its own kind of betrayal. And now, that silence follows me from room to room, heavy like a shadow I can't shake. I wonder if my stepson told his father. If that's why he watches me differently now. Not with suspicion, but distance. Like someone trying to protect a truth that no one wants to name. Or maybe he didn't tell him. Maybe he's holding it in like I am. Tucked away. Rotting quietly behind the smiles and the dinners and the polite small talk. I wonder if he ever will. If one day, years from now, something will push it out of him. A fight. A conversation. A memory he can't unsee. I wonder if the damage is already done, even if no one says it out loud. Even if nothing ever happened. Because damage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's soft. Whispered. Slow. I used to be proud of the woman I was. I used to know where the lines were. What I'd never allow. What I'd never become. Now, I feel like a guest in her skin. Like I borrowed her body for a day and returned it with cracks in the foundation. I smile in the mirror and don't recognize the woman looking back. They say every house has ghosts. People you loved. Things you lost. Moments that didn't die, but lingered. Mine? Mine haven't left yet. They sit with me at the table. Follow me into the laundry room. Whisper to me in the shower. Not him. Not the boy. Not even my husband. The ghost is me. The version of myself that I buried that night. The one who knew better. The one who would have said no. The one who would have never let loneliness speak louder than love. And now, I don't know if she's ever coming back. Have you ever found yourself right there on the edge of something? Not because you wanted to fall, but because you were tired of standing alone. Have you ever almost crossed a line, not out of lust, not out of recklessness, but because, for a brief second, you just wanted to feel like you mattered again? I didn't plan any of it. There was no fantasy, no intention. Just a moment that cracked open something I'd buried for years. And once it opened, I couldn't close it back. If you've ever been in that space between right and wrong, where everything feels blurred and nothing feels safe, then maybe you'll understand. Would you have stopped it sooner? Would you have spoken up? Told the truth? Or would you have done what I did, held it in, smiled through it, and let it become a quiet wound no one could see? If this story made something inside you shift, if it stirred a memory you've never said aloud, or a feeling you've never been able to name, then leave a comment. Let someone else know they're not the only one. And if you want more stories like this, raw, unfinished, human, then subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because the next one? It might sound a little too close to home. Some infidelities don't happen in bedrooms. They happen in kitchens, in shared glances across a couch, in the breath between a question and a decision. They live in the way someone says your name after a long time of not being called anything. In the way your skin wakes up at the wrong moment, for the wrong reason, with the wrong person. They bloom not out of desire, but out of absence. Out of being forgotten for so long that even a flicker of attention feels like a rescue. I didn't touch him, but I let the moment touch me, and now I carry that bruise like a secret. One that never turns purple or fades to yellow. One that